The Pacific waves crashed violently against Monterey Beach that fateful morning when Ethan Carter spotted a lifeless figure tumbling in the surf. "Daddy, someone's drowning!" 6-year-old Mia screamed, her tiny finger pointing at the churning waters. In seconds, Ethan dove into the deadly current, not knowing he was about to save Rebecca Sterling, the billionaire CEO whose empire controlled his future. But it was Mia's terrified words that would change everything. "You scared me. I thought you'd never come back." Welcome to our story. Comment your city below to see how far our tale travels and stay with me until the very end. The morning sun barely pierced through the thick marine layer hanging over Monterey Beach as Ethan Carter zipped up his daughter's pink windbreaker. October mornings on the California coast carried a bite that tourists never expected, and locals knew better than to trust the deceptive sunshine that would burn through by noon. "Daddy, can we build a mermaid castle today?" Mia asked, her gap-toothed smile brightening despite the gray dawn. She clutched her plastic bucket decorated with seahorses, the same one they'd bought at the pier shop 3 summers ago when her mother was still around. "Sure thing, Princess," Ethan replied, adjusting her knit cap to cover her ears. "But first, let's find the perfect spot. Remember what I taught you about checking the tide lines?" Mia nodded solemnly, taking her beach duties seriously. At 6 years old, she'd become his little assistant in everything from sorting screws at his construction sites to measuring pancake batter on Sunday mornings. It had been just the two of them for almost 2 years now, ever since Lauren had decided that motherhood and marriage weren't compatible with her dreams of becoming an actress in Los Angeles. They walked hand in hand along the waterline, Ethan's work boots, leaving deep prints in the wet sand while Mia's light steps barely made an impression. The beach was nearly deserted at 7 in the morning, just a few joggers in the distance and an elderly man throwing tennis balls for his golden retriever. "Daddy, look at all the seaweed," Mia exclaimed, pointing at the massive kelp formations the overnight storm had deposited along the shore. "The mermaids must have had a party." Ethan chuckled, about to respond when something caught his eye. Among the dark tangles of kelp about 30 yards out where the waves were breaking, he saw something that made his blood run cold. It wasn't seaweed, it was a person. The body rolled limply with each wave, face-down arms splayed unnaturally. Dark hair fanned out like ink in the water. "Mia, stay here," Ethan commanded, his voice sharp with urgency as he dropped their beach bag. "Don't move, understand?" "Daddy, what?" "Stay here." He was already running, ripping off his jacket as he crashed into the surf. The October Pacific hit him like 1,000 needles, the water probably barely 60 degrees. His jeans immediately became lead weights, but adrenaline propelled him forward. The waves were stronger than they looked from shore. The storm had stirred up powerful currents, and twice Ethan was knocked sideways by breakers that crashed over his head. Salt water burned his eyes and filled his mouth, but he kept swimming, his carpenter's arms pulling him through the churning water with desperate strength. When he reached the body, his worst fears were confirmed. It was a woman unconscious, her designer suit waterlogged and twisted around her slim frame. Her face had a blue tinge that sent panic shooting through Ethan's chest. How long had she been in the water? He grabbed her under the arms, trying to keep her head above water as he turned back toward shore. She was heavier than she looked, the water in her clothes adding dead weight. A wave crashed over them both, and for a terrifying moment, Ethan lost his grip. He dove under, finding her sinking form, and pulled her back up. "Come on! Come on!" He grunted through gritted teeth, fighting against the current that seemed determined to pull them both out to sea. His feet finally found sand. He dragged her through the shallows, his muscles screaming, lungs burning. On the beach, he could hear Mia crying, calling for him, but he couldn't stop to comfort her. Not yet. He laid the woman on her back on the firm sand, immediately checking for a pulse. Nothing. Her lips were purple, her skin cold as winter marble. "Call 911, he shouted to the elderly man with the dog who had rushed over. The man fumbled for his phone while Ethan tilted the woman's head back, pinched her nose, and began CPR. 2 breaths, 30 compressions. 2 breaths, 30 compressions. "Please," he whispered between compressions. "Please don't die. Not in front of my daughter." He could hear Mia sobbing behind him, probably being held back by the growing crowd of morning joggers who had stopped to help. Someone draped his discarded jacket over his wet shoulders, but he shrugged it off. He needed full range of motion. 2 breaths. 30 compressions. His arms ached. His own breathing was ragged. "Daddy!" Mia's voice cut through everything else. "Daddy, help her." Something about his daughter's plea gave him renewed strength. He compressed harder, faster, putting his full weight behind each push. "Come on!" he shouted at the unconscious woman. "You're not dying on this beach. You hear me? You're not doing this." Suddenly she convulsed. Water erupted from her mouth and nose in a violent spray. Ethan quickly turned her on her side as she vomited seawater, her body racked with painful spasms as it fought to expel the ocean from her lungs. She gasped a raw, desperate sound that was the most beautiful thing Ethan had heard in his life. Her eyes flew open, wild and unfocused hands clawing at the sand. "It's okay," Ethan said, supporting her head. "You're safe. You're on the beach. You're safe." Her eyes found his striking green eyes that seemed to look right through him even in their confused state. Her hand shot out and gripped his wrist with surprising strength. Don't go," she whispered hoarsely, her voice barely audible over the waves. "I'm not going anywhere," Ethan assured her, using his free hand to brush wet hair from her face. "The ambulance is coming. You're going to be okay." She tried to sit up, but he gently held her down. "Easy. You nearly drowned. You need to stay still." "The rocks," she mumbled, her eyes drifting closed again. "Slipped on the rocks, watching the sunrise." Ethan looked up the beach and saw the jetty about 100 yards north, its black rocks slick with algae. If she'd fallen there during high tide, the current would have pulled her right into the impact zone where the waves were strongest. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The crowd parted as two paramedics jogged across the sand with their equipment. Ethan started to move back, but the woman's grip on his wrist tightened. "Please," she whispered, those green eyes finding his again. "Stay." "Sir, we need to examine her," one of the paramedics said gently. "It's okay," Ethan told the woman. "These people are here to help you. I'll be right here." She reluctantly released his wrist and he stepped back to give the paramedics room. That's when Mia broke free from whoever had been holding her and crashed into his legs, wrapping her arms around him so tightly he could barely breathe. "You scared me," she sobbed into his soaked jeans. "You scared me so bad I thought you'd never come back. I thought you'd go away like Mommy." Ethan's heart shattered. He dropped to his knees and pulled Mia into his arms, not caring that he was soaking her clothes. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere, I promise." "You went in the big waves," she accused through her tears. "The scary waves that you always tell me never to go in." "I know, sweetheart, but someone needed help." "Is the lady okay?" Mia peeked over his shoulder at where the paramedics were working, placing an oxygen mask over the woman's face and wrapping her in thermal blankets. "I think so. We helped her, didn't we?" Mia nodded solemnly. "We're heroes." "You're my hero," Ethan said, kissing her forehead. "You were so brave staying right where I told you." The paramedics had the woman on a stretcher, now preparing to carry her to the ambulance. As they passed, she turned her head searching until she found Ethan. She weakly raised one hand from under the blanket, a small wave, a thank you. Her eyes held his for a long moment before the paramedics loaded her into the ambulance. "Sir." A police officer approached with a notepad. "You're the one who pulled her out." "Yeah," Ethan said, standing up with Mia still clinging to his leg. "You probably saved her life. That water's 58 degrees today. Another few minutes." The officer shook his head. "Can I get your name and contact information? The hospital might need to follow up." Ethan gave his information, his mind still reeling from the adrenaline crash. The officer took down his account of what happened, thanked him again, and left. The beach was returning to normal. The elderly man with the golden retriever approached, holding Ethan's jacket in their beach bag. "That was incredible, son," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "Not many people would have gone in after her. These currents are deadly. Anyone would have—" "No," the man interrupted. "They wouldn't. I've lived here 40 years, seen too many people stand on the beach and watch. You're a hero, whether you want to admit it or not." The man walked away before Ethan could respond. He looked down at Mia, who was staring up at him with a mixture of awe and residual fear. "Daddy." "Yeah, princess." "Can we go home? I don't want to build castles anymore today." "Of course, sweetheart. Let's go home." As they walked back to his truck, Ethan carried Mia on his shoulders despite his exhaustion. She played with his wet hair, styling it into ridiculous spikes that made them both laugh. But he couldn't shake the image of those green eyes, the desperation in that whispered plea, "Don't go." He had no idea that the woman he'd just pulled from the Pacific Ocean was Rebecca Sterling, CEO of Sterling Developments, one of the largest commercial real estate firms on the West Coast. He had no idea that her company had just approved the bid from his small construction firm for the biggest contract they'd ever won. He had no idea how completely their lives had just become intertwined. All he knew was that his daughter was safe on his shoulders. They were both going home, and somewhere in an ambulance racing toward Monterey General Hospital, a stranger was breathing because he'd decided to take his daughter to the beach on a gray October morning. "Daddy," Mia asked as he buckled her into her car seat. "Yeah, baby." "Do you think the mermaid lady will be okay?" Ethan smiled at his daughter's imagination. "The mermaid lady. She came from the ocean. Maybe she's a mermaid who lost her tail." "Maybe she is," Ethan agreed, kissing Mia's forehead. "And thanks to you spotting her, she's going to be just fine." As they drove away from Monterey Beach, Ethan caught a glimpse of the ocean in his rear-view mirror. The sun had finally burned through the marine layer, turning the violent gray waves into sparkling blue gems. Beautiful and deadly, like everything in life worth saving. 3 days passed before Ethan's phone rang with an unknown number. He almost didn't answer too many robocalls lately, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Carter? This is Rebecca Sterling. You saved my life at Monterey Beach." The voice was different from the desperate whisper he remembered. This voice was strong, cultured, with an underlying warmth that made him grip the phone tighter. "Miss Sterling, I'm glad you're okay. Thanks to you. Mr. Carter, I need to thank you properly. Could we meet for coffee?" Ethan looked across his living room where Mia was coloring at the coffee table, her tongue stuck out in concentration. "That's not necessary, really. Anyone would have—" "Please." There was that word again, carrying the same weight as when she'd gripped his wrist on the beach. "I remember everything, including the little girl crying for her daddy. I need to thank you both." And that's how it started. Not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with a simple phone call and a request for coffee. Ethan had no way of knowing that agreeing to that meeting would change everything: his life, his daughter's future, and the fate of two empires built on entirely different foundations. The construction site was buzzing with activity when Ethan arrived the next morning. His crew was already hard at work on the Riverside Community Center project, their biggest contract to date. $5 million to build a state-of-the-art facility that would serve underprivileged kids in East Monterey. It was the kind of project Ethan had dreamed about when he started Carter Construction 5 years ago, right after Lauren had announced she was pregnant. "Boss, you see the news?" His foreman Miguel jogged over with his phone extended. "That woman you saved, she's all over the business section." Ethan took the phone and nearly dropped it. The headline read, "Sterling Development CEO survives near drowning at Monterey Beach." Below was a professional headshot of the woman he'd pulled from the waves, though she looked nothing like the pale, lifeless figure he'd dragged onto the sand. In the photo, Rebecca Sterling was polished perfection. Sharp blazer, confident smile, eyes that commanded attention. "Holy shit," Ethan breathed. "She's Rebecca Sterling. You saved the Rebecca Sterling." Miguel's eyes were wide. "Dude, her company owns half of downtown. They're the ones who approved our bid for this place." Ethan handed back the phone, his mind racing. The woman who'd gripped his wrist with desperate strength, who'd looked at him like he was her lifeline, was one of the most powerful real estate developers in California, and she wanted to have coffee with him. "You gonna meet her?" Miguel asked. "She wants to thank me." "And Mia?" Miguel whistled low. "Man, when you save someone's life, you don't mess around. You should ask her for a raise on the contract." "Miguel, I'm kidding. Mostly. But seriously, boss, this is huge. Sterling Developments could make or break companies like ours. Having Rebecca Sterling owe you her life, that's better than winning the lottery." Ethan didn't care about any of that. All he could think about was the way she'd said "please" on the phone, the same vulnerability he'd heard on the beach beneath the CEO polish. That afternoon, he picked up Mia from school and explained they were going to meet someone special. The mermaid lady, Mia asked excitedly from her booster seat. She's not really a mermaid sweetheart. Maybe she is and she just can't tell us, like in the movies where they have to keep it secret. Ethan smiled at his daughter's imagination. Maybe you're right, but we have to pretend we don't know, okay? It would be rude to blow her cover. I'm good at keeping secrets, Mia said seriously. They met at a small cafe overlooking the harbor, one of those local places tourists never found. Ethan had suggested it, thinking it would be less formal than wherever a CEO usually had coffee. He spotted her immediately. She was sitting at a corner table, staring out at the ocean with an expression he couldn't read. She'd dressed down, or what probably counted as dressing down, for her designer jeans, a cashmere sweater, and sunglasses pushed up on her head. When she saw them approaching, she stood quickly, almost knocking over her coffee cup. "Mr. Carter." Her voice was warm but nervous. Then her eyes dropped to Mia, and her entire face softened. "And you must be the brave little girl I've heard about." Mia, suddenly shy, pressed against Ethan's leg. "I'm Mia. It's wonderful to meet you, Mia. I'm Rebecca." She crouched down to Mia's level, a move that surprised Ethan. "Your daddy told me you were the one who spotted me in the water. You're my hero." "Daddy's the hero," Mia corrected. "He went in the scary waves." "You're both heroes," Rebecca said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small wrapped box. "I have something for you if it's okay with your dad." Ethan nodded, and Mia carefully unwrapped the gift. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a tiny mermaid charm. "It's beautiful," Mia gasped. "Daddy, look, she gave me a mermaid." Rebecca's eyes flicked to Ethan, confused. He mouthed, "I'll explain later," as he helped Mia put on the bracelet. They sat down, Mia immediately pulling out her coloring book while the adults talked. Rebecca ordered hot chocolate for Mia with extra whipped cream, remembering to ask for a kid-safe temperature without being prompted. "You have children?" Ethan asked. "No." A shadow crossed her face. "Never found the time. Or the right person. My company has been my baby for the past 15 years. "Must be lonely." The words were out before Ethan could stop them. He immediately kicked himself. Who was he to comment on her life? But Rebecca just smiled sadly. "Yes, it is. Especially when you nearly die and realize the only person who'd really miss you is your assistant, and that's mainly because she'd have to find a new job." "I'm sure that's not true." "Isn't it?" She took a sip of her coffee. "I've built an empire, Mr. Carter. Sterling Developments has 42 projects in progress, 800 employees, and a portfolio worth $2 billion. But when I was drowning in that water, all I could think was that no one would even know I was gone until Monday's board meeting." The raw honesty in her voice caught him off guard. This wasn't the polished CEO from the newspaper photo. This was the vulnerable woman from the beach. "Why were you out there alone?" he asked gently. "The article said you were watching the sunrise, but those rocks are dangerous even at low tide." Rebecca was quiet for a moment, watching Mia color a picture of a princess. "My father used to take me to that exact spot when I was her age. Every Sunday morning we'd watch the sunrise together. He'd tell me stories about how he was going to build something that mattered, something that would last longer than both of us. Sterling Developments was his dream first. He died 2 years ago, lung cancer. I've been running the company since, trying to honor his vision, but..." She trailed off, then seemed to shake herself. "I'm sorry. You didn't agree to coffee to hear my life story." "I agreed to coffee because you asked," Ethan said simply. "And because my daughter hasn't stopped talking about the mermaid lady for 3 days." "Mermaid lady." "Daddy says you came from the ocean," Mia piped up, not looking up from her coloring. "And you're really pretty, like mermaids are supposed to be." Rebecca actually blushed, something Ethan wouldn't have thought possible for someone with her poise. "Well, thank you, Mia. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in a long time." They talked for another hour, conversation flowing with surprising ease. Rebecca asked about Ethan's business, genuinely interested in the challenges of running a small construction company. She laughed at Mia's jokes, helped her color a particularly tricky castle, and didn't check her phone once, despite it buzzing constantly in her purse. "I should let you go," Rebecca finally said, though she made no move to leave. I'm sure you have things to do on a Saturday afternoon. Soccer practice, Mia announced. I'm the goalie. The most important position. Rebecca agreed. She hesitated, then pulled out a business card. Mr. Carter Ethan, I know I can never truly repay what you did, but if you ever need anything at all, please call me. You don't owe me anything, Ethan said, but he took the card. I owe you everything, she corrected quietly. Then louder to Mia. It was wonderful meeting you, sweetheart. Take care of your dad for me. I always do, Mia said seriously. He needs lots of taking care of. He forgets to eat lunch and sometimes wears different socks. Rebecca laughed a real laugh that transformed her face. Different socks, huh? That's a serious problem. As they walked to the door, Rebecca touched Ethan's arm. The Riverside Community Center, that's your project, isn't it? How did you... He stopped. Right, your company approved the bid. It's a good design, thoughtful. The kids in that neighborhood deserve something special. Every kid deserves something special. She studied him for a moment. Yes, they do. Outside the cafe, they stood awkwardly for a moment. Mia had run ahead to look at boats in the harbor. Can I ask you something? Rebecca said suddenly. Sure. When you went into that water, weren't you afraid? Ethan thought about it. Terrified, but not of drowning. Then of what? He nodded toward Mia, who was now making friends with someone's dog. Of leaving her alone. She's already lost one parent who chose to leave. I couldn't let her lose another. Rebecca's eyes glistened. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. They shook hands, a formal gesture that felt wrong somehow after everything. Her hand was warm and soft, nothing like the desperate grip from the beach. She held on a second longer than necessary. Goodbye, Ethan. Goodbye, Rebecca. As he drove to soccer practice, Mia chattered about Rebecca from the back seat. I like her daddy. She's nice and sad. Sad? What makes you think she's sad? Her eyes. They're like yours sometimes when you think I'm not looking, like when you stare at mommy's picture. Out of the mouths of babes. Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror at his too perceptive daughter. Maybe she just needs a friend. We could be her friends, Mia suggested. We're good at being friends. That night after Mia was asleep, Ethan sat on his back porch with a beer, staring at Rebecca Sterling's business card. The paper was expensive, the lettering embossed. It even smelled expensive, like something from a world he'd never belonged to. He pulled out his phone and Googled her. The results were overwhelming. Articles about her takeover of Sterling Developments after her father's death. Pictures of her at galas and charity events always alone, despite being surrounded by people. A profile in Forbes calling her the ice queen of real estate that made him angry for reasons he couldn't explain. She wasn't ice. Ice was brittle cold, lifeless. The woman he'd pulled from the ocean, the one who'd bought his daughter a mermaid bracelet and remembered to order kid-temperature hot chocolate, she was flesh and blood and pain and loneliness wrapped in designer armor. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Thank you again for today, and for 3 days ago, and for not treating me like a CEO. Rebecca. He stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Thank you for making my daughter believe in mermaids again. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, maybe we all need to believe in magic sometimes. Ethan smiled and set down his phone. In the distance, he could hear the ocean constant and eternal. The same ocean that had nearly claimed her, that had brought them together, that would always remind them both how fragile and precious life really was. He had no idea that in a gleaming office tower 20 miles away, Rebecca Sterling was standing at her floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at that same ocean, holding her phone and reading his message over and over. He had no idea she hadn't felt this alive since before her father died. He had no idea that she'd already pulled his company's files studying his work, his proposal for the community center, the careful attention to detail that spoke of a man who built things to last. And neither of them had any idea that in less than a week, everything would become infinitely more complicated, that corporate politics and personal vendettas would threaten to destroy everything they were both trying to build, that a second chance at life would become a fight for both their futures. But for now, in this moment, they were just 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, through salt water and desperation, through a child's tears and a mermaid's bracelet, through the simple act of one human being refusing to let another slip away into the depths. The ocean kept its rhythm indifferent to human drama, carrying secrets and possibilities in equal measure. And somewhere between the tides, two lives that should never have intersected were beginning to flow together, as inevitable and powerful as the sea itself. The following Monday morning arrived with an unusual phone call that would change the trajectory of everything. Ethan was reviewing blueprints at the construction site when his phone rang Rebecca Sterling's office. "Mr. Carter, this is Jennifer, Ms. Sterling's assistant. She'd like to schedule a site visit to the Riverside Community Center project this afternoon if you're available." Ethan nearly dropped his coffee. Site visits from Sterling Development's executives weren't unusual, but the CEO herself. That was unheard of. "Of course. What time works for her, Mahmoud?" 2:00. "She's particularly interested in seeing the progress on the children's wing." After hanging up, Miguel appeared at his shoulder. "Boss, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Rebecca Sterling is coming here. Today." Miguel's eyes widened. "The mermaid lady is coming to our construction site." Word spread through the crew like wildfire. By 1:30, everyone had mysteriously found reasons to be working in visible areas. Hard hats, cleaned safety vests, properly fastened. Ethan had never seen his team look so professional. At exactly 2:00, a black Tesla pulled up to the site. Rebecca emerged and Ethan's breath caught. She'd traded her casual weekend attire for full CEO armor, a perfectly tailored navy suit heels that somehow navigated the construction debris with grace and an air of authority that made several of his workers stop mid-hammer. But when her eyes found his, he saw a flicker of the vulnerable woman from the cafe. "Mr. Carter," she said formally, extending her hand. "Thank you for accommodating this visit." "Ms. Sterling," he replied, matching her professional tone despite the absurdity of the formality between them. She was accompanied by two other executives, a sharp-faced man introduced as Victor Hale, vice president of operations, and a younger woman named Sandra from the finance department. Victor's handshake was unnecessarily firm, his smile not reaching his eyes. "So you're the hero who saved our CEO." Victor said, his tone carrying an undercurrent Ethan couldn't quite identify. "Lucky timing." "Lucky for everyone," Rebecca interjected smoothly, but Ethan noticed the slight tension in her jaw. They toured the site, Ethan explaining the progress, the innovative approaches they'd taken to maximize the space while staying under budget. Rebecca asked intelligent questions, clearly having done her homework. She understood construction in a way that surprised him, knowing about load-bearing walls, foundation requirements, even the latest sustainable building materials. "You've studied architecture," Ethan observed as they stood in what would become the art room. "My father insisted," she replied, running her hand along a beam. "He said you can't build an empire without understanding foundations, both literal and metaphorical." Victor cleared his throat loudly. "Speaking of foundations, I noticed some discrepancies in the latest inspection reports." "What discrepancies?" Ethan asked, his stomach tightening. "Nothing major," Victor said with a smile that suggested otherwise. "Just some questions about the steel grade specifications. I'm sure it's nothing." Rebecca's eyes narrowed slightly. "Victor, if there were serious concerns, they would have been raised through proper channels." "Of course. I'm just being thorough. We can't be too careful with a project this visible, especially one so close to your heart, Rebecca." The way he said her name made Ethan's fists clench. There was something predatory in Victor's manner, like a wolf circling wounded prey. They continued the tour, but the atmosphere had shifted. Victor found subtle ways to question every decision, every innovation, always with that same practiced smile. Sandra, meanwhile, kept checking her phone nervously, avoiding eye contact with everyone. When they reached the section that would house the daycare center, Rebecca stopped abruptly. "This wasn't in the original plans." "No," Ethan admitted. "We found a way to reconfigure the space without additional cost. Figured the community could use quality childcare. Too many parents can't work because they can't afford somewhere safe to leave their kids." Rebecca turned to him, and for a moment the CEO mask slipped entirely. That's wonderful." "Technically, any deviation from approved plans requires board review," Victor interjected. "This could delay the project by months." "Or," Rebecca said coolly, We could recognize innovation when we see it and approve the modification today. Sandra, make a note for the board minutes. The modification is approved. Victor's jaw tightened. Rebecca, you can't just... I believe I can, Victor. Or have you forgotten who signs your paychecks? The tension was thick enough to cut. Sandra fumbled with her tablet, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. Ethan's crew had stopped pretending to work, everyone watching the corporate drama unfold. Perhaps we should continue this discussion back at the office, Victor suggested, his voice dangerously quiet. Perhaps we should. Rebecca turned back to Ethan. Mr. Carter, thank you for the tour. Your work here is exceptional. She started to leave, then paused. Actually, Victor, Sandra, you two go ahead. I need to discuss some technical specifications with Mr. Carter. Victor's face darkened. I should stay for any technical discussions. That won't be necessary. I'm perfectly capable of handling this myself. After they left Victor's departure, radiating barely concealed fury, Rebecca's shoulders sagged slightly. I apologize for that, she said quietly. Victor has been difficult since my father died. He expected to be named CEO. Instead, he got passed over for the boss's daughter. She smiled bitterly. Something like that. Though I'd worked for the company for 15 years, built half our portfolio from nothing. But to men like Victor, I'll always be the nepotism hire. They walked to a quieter part of the site, away from curious ears. Rebecca pulled off her heels without ceremony, standing barefoot on the plywood subflooring. God, that feels better. How women built empires in these torture devices, I'll never know. The gesture was so unexpectedly human that Ethan laughed. You could have worn boots. We have extras. Can you imagine Victor would have had a field day? Rebecca Sterling goes native at construction site. He'd probably call an emergency board meeting about my mental stability. Is he really that bad? He's worse. He's smart, connected, and patient. He's been building alliances on the board for 2 years, waiting for me to make a mistake. She paused, looking out through the framed window opening. Nearly drowning probably counts as a mistake in his book. That wasn't a mistake. That was an accident. To Victor, there's no difference. Weakness is weakness. She turned to him suddenly. Can I ask you something completely inappropriate? After standing barefoot on my construction site, I think we've passed inappropriate. Would you have dinner with me, not as CEO and contractor, just Rebecca and Ethan? The question hung in the air between them. Ethan knew he should say no. There were 100 reasons to keep this professional, but looking at her brilliant, powerful, and utterly alone, he couldn't. Mia has piano practice until 7. After that, her smile transformed her face. After that, they met at a small Italian restaurant in Carmel, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. Rebecca had changed into jeans and a soft sweater, her CEO armor left behind. I haven't been here in years, she said, looking around with wonder. My father used to bring me here for my birthday when I was young, before the company became everything. When did it become everything? When my mother left. The words came out matter-of-factly, but Ethan heard the old pain beneath. I was 12. She said she couldn't compete with his ambition anymore, so I decided to share it instead. Became his perfect protege. If I couldn't keep her, at least I could keep him. Did it work? For a while. We built something incredible together, but somewhere along the way, I forgot to build a life. She took a sip of wine. What about you, Mia's mother? Lauren, we met in college, got married young, had Mia. Then she decided motherhood was incompatible with her dreams of becoming an actress. She left 2 years ago, shows up occasionally, makes promises to Mia she doesn't keep, then disappears again. The last time was 6 months ago. Mia cried for a week. That's horrible. It is what it is. Mia and I were a good team. She's helped me through as much as I've helped her. She's remarkable. So confident and creative. She gets that from her mother, actually. Lauren is incredibly talented. She just couldn't reconcile that with being present. They talked through 2 courses, the conversation flowing as easily as it had at the cafe. Rebecca was brilliant, but funny, with a self-deprecating humor that surprised him. She told stories about boardroom disasters, about the time she'd accidentally worn 2 different shoes to a major presentation about the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated industry. Do you know what they call me? she asked over tiramisu. The Ice Queen, like I'm some frigid witch who lives in a tower made of steel and glass. Does it bother you? It used to. Now I realize it's armor. If they think I'm ice, they don't look for the cracks. Everyone has cracks. What are yours? Yeah, she asked, genuinely curious. Ethan thought about it. I'm terrified I'm not enough. Not enough for Mia, for my business, for anyone. I'm building things all day, but sometimes I feel like I'm just barely holding everything together with duct tape and good intentions. You saved my life. That's not duct tape. That's steel. I got lucky. No. She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. You made a choice. In that moment, you chose to risk everything for a stranger. That's not luck. That's character. Her hand was warm on his. He turned his palm up, interlacing their fingers. What are we doing, Rebecca? I don't know, she admitted. I know it's complicated. I know there are a dozen reasons this is a bad idea. But when I was drowning, when everything was going dark, the last thing I thought was that I'd wasted my whole life being careful, being perfect, being alone. You're not alone now. Neither are you. They stayed until the restaurant closed, the staff pointedly stacking chairs around them. Outside in the parking lot, they stood by their cars, reluctant to end the evening. I should warn you, Rebecca said suddenly. Victor won't let this go. The modifications, I mean. He'll find a way to make trouble. Let him try. My work is solid. It's not about the work. It's about me. He sees everything as a chess move toward taking control of the company, and now you're on the board. I'm not a chess piece. No, she agreed, stepping closer. You're something much more dangerous. You're someone I care about. Before he could respond, she kissed him. It was soft, tentative, nothing like the confident CEO who commanded boardrooms. When she pulled back, her eyes were vulnerable. Was that another bad idea? She asked. Probably, he said, then kissed her again. But I'm starting to like bad ideas. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a pattern. Official site visits where they maintained professional distance, followed by quiet dinners where they didn't. Mia joined them sometimes. Rebecca teaching her to use chopsticks at a Japanese restaurant, helping her with homework at Ethan's kitchen table, reading her bedtime stories when she stayed late. She's never had this, Mia confided one night when Rebecca was in the bathroom. A mom who stays. Rebecca's not, Ethan started, but Mia interrupted. I know she's not my mom, but she stays. She shows up. She remembers things. That's what moms are supposed to do, right? Ethan's heart broke a little. Yeah, baby, that's what they're supposed to do. The trouble started 3 weeks after that first dinner. Ethan arrived at the site Monday morning to find it crawling with inspectors. Not the usual city inspectors he knew by name, but a special team from the state. What's going on? He asked the lead inspector, a stern woman with a clipboard. Anonymous complaint about substandard materials. We'll need to halt work until we complete a full review. That could take weeks. Then I suggest you have all your documentation ready. Ethan spent the day pulling records proving every beam, every bolt, every bag of concrete met or exceeded specifications. His phone buzzed constantly, Rebecca calling, but he couldn't answer, not until he understood what was happening. That evening, she showed up at his house unannounced, still in her work clothes, but looking haggard. It's Victor, she said without preamble. The inspection, the anonymous complaint, it's all him. You're sure? He practically bragged about it in the board meeting today, said we needed to be more careful about oversight, especially on projects I'm emotionally invested in. He knows about us. He suspects. That's enough. She sank onto his couch, head in her hands. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I should have seen this coming. Hey. He sat beside her, pulling her against him. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? I knew what Victor was capable of. I should have kept things professional between us. Do you regret it? She looked up at him. No, never. These past few weeks, I've felt more alive than I have in years, but I won't let him destroy your business because of me. My business will be fine. My work speaks for itself. You don't understand. Victor has connections everywhere. Inspectors, suppliers, even some of your subcontractors. He can make your life hell. Then we fight back. With what? He's careful. Nothing traceable to him directly. Mia appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. Daddy? Rebecca, why are you upset? Rebecca immediately shifted, putting on a smile. We're not upset, sweetheart. Just talking about grown-up work stuff. Mia patted over and climbed into Rebecca's lap without hesitation. When I'm upset, Daddy says to name 5 things I can see 4, I can hear 3, I can touch 2, I can smell, and 1 I can taste. It helps. Rebecca hugged her tightly. That's very wise. Your daddy's pretty smart. He is, Mia agreed. But you're smart too. Together you're super smart. That's better than one smart right out of the mouths of babes again. Rebecca looked at Ethan over Mia's head, something shifting in her expression. You're absolutely right, Mia. Together is better. After Mia went back to bed, they strategized. Rebecca would handle the corporate side, documenting Victor's interference. Ethan would focus on getting the inspections cleared, proving his work was beyond reproach. There's something else, Rebecca said as she prepared to leave. The company gala is next week. If I show up alone again, it reinforces Victor's narrative that I'm isolated weak. But if I show up with you, it declares war. Yes, I won't ask you to. What time should I pick you up? She stared at him. Ethan, this will change everything. Once we're public, there's no going back. Rebecca, I jumped into freezing water for you before I even knew your name. You think I'm scared of some corporate sharks in tuxedos? She kissed him then, fierce and grateful. How did I get so lucky? Maybe you used up all your bad luck in the ocean. The week of the gala was torture. The state inspections dragged on each day, bringing new concerns that required documentation. 2 of Ethan's subcontractors suddenly had scheduling conflicts. A shipment of materials arrived, damaged the supplier, claiming the order had been changed at the last minute. Miguel worked 18-hour days beside him, refusing to give up. We've built this company from nothing, boss. Some suit isn't going to tear it down. The night before the gala, Ethan was still at the site at midnight, going over paperwork by floodlight, when Rebecca appeared with Chinese takeout and coffee. You need to sleep, she said, unpacking containers. You can't fight if you're exhausted. Can't sleep, too much to do. Ethan. She took his face in her hands. Look at me. The inspection is almost done. Your documentation is perfect. Tomorrow night we show everyone that neither of us is alone anymore. Victor wants a war. We give him one. What if we lose? Then we lose together. But I don't think we will. You know why. Why? Because you build things to last. Your buildings, your business, your relationship with Mia. Everything you touch has foundations that go deep. Victor builds on sand, lies, manipulation, fear. That's not sustainable. They ate cold Chinese food in the construction trailer, planning their strategy for the gala. Rebecca would introduce him to key board members, the ones still undecided about Victor's power grab. They'd present a united front, professional but clearly together. I need to warn you, Rebecca said. The gossip will be vicious. They'll say you're using me, that I'm having some kind of breakdown, that this is all about the contract. Let them talk. People who know me know better. And people who don't will learn. The night of the gala. Ethan stood in front of his mirror, adjusting the bow tie for the 10th time. He'd rented a tuxedo, buying seemed presumptuous and felt like a kid playing dress-up. You look handsome, Daddy, Mia said from the doorway. Mrs. Chen from next door had come to babysit, but Mia wanted to see him off. You think Rebecca will like it? Rebecca likes you in your dirty work clothes. She'll love you in fancy clothes. Love. The word hung in the air. They hadn't said it yet, hadn't even come close, but Mia threw it around so easily. Be good for Mrs. Chen. Always am, Daddy. Yeah? Don't let the mean man hurt Rebecca, okay? She pretends to be tough, but she's not. Not really. How did his 6-year-old see so much I won't baby? I promise. The gala was at the Fairmont in San Francisco, the ballroom dripping with crystal and old money. Ethan valeted his truck, earning a skeptical look from the attendant, and walked through the lobby, feeling like everyone could tell he didn't belong. Then he saw her. Rebecca stood at the top of the ballroom stairs, and for a moment Ethan forgot how to breathe. She wore a deep emerald gown that made her eyes impossibly green, Her hair swept up to reveal the elegant line of her neck. But it wasn't the dress or the diamonds at her throat that stopped him. It was the way her face lit up when she saw him, like he was the only person in a room full of hundreds. She descended the stairs and took his arm. "You clean up nice, Mr. Carter." "You look—" He couldn't find words adequate enough. "I know," she said with a small smile. "That's the point. Armor, remember?" They entered the ballroom together, and the effect was immediate. Conversation stopped mid-sentence, heads turned. Someone actually dropped a champagne flute. "Steady," Rebecca murmured. "Here comes the first wave." A group of board members approached, led by an elderly man with sharp eyes. Rebecca stunning as always, and this must be the famous Mr. Carter. "Ethan Carter. This is William Chen, our board chair." Ethan shook hands, noting the firm grip and evaluating gaze. "So you're the hero who pulled our CEO from the Pacific. We owe you a debt." "Just did what anyone would do, sir." "No," William said thoughtfully. "I don't think you did. Rebecca might—" "I steal Mr. Carter for a moment. I'd like to hear about the community center project." Rebecca squeezed Ethan's arm before letting go. As William led him away, Ethan heard him say quietly, "Victor's been making noise about your modifications. I'd like to hear your side." For the next hour, Ethan found himself in the surprising position of defending not just his work, but his vision. William Chen, it turned out, had grown up in East Monterey. He understood what the community center could mean. "Victor says you deviated from approved plans," William noted. "I improved them, at no additional cost." "And Rebecca approved these improvements?" "She recognized their value, yes. I'm sure she did." William's tone was unreadable. "Tell me, Mr. Carter, what do you think of Victor Hale?" Dangerous question. Ethan chose honesty. "I think he's more interested in power than purpose." William smiled slightly. "Diplomatically said, and Rebecca, she's brilliant, dedicated. She sees buildings not just as investments, but as legacies." "You sound like her father." "I'll take that as a compliment." "You should." Richard Sterling was a visionary, but he was also ruthless when necessary. Is Rebecca— Ethan thought about it. "She's strong, but not ruthless. She builds up, not tear down." "And you— What do you build, Mr. Carter?" "Futures. For my daughter, for communities that need hope, for—" He stopped. "For Rebecca. If she'll let me." William clapped him on the shoulder. "Good answer. Now let's go rescue her from the sharks. She's been cornered by Victor and his cronies." They found Rebecca surrounded by a small group, Victor holding court. His voice carried over the music. "Emotional decision-making that puts the company at risk. First, the near-drowning incident, now this questionable relationship with a contractor. The board has to wonder about her judgment." "My judgment," Rebecca said coolly, "has generated 30% growth year over year. What has yours generated, Victor?" "Besides hot air." A few people laughed nervously. Victor's face darkened. "Your father would be disappointed." The room went silent. It was a low blow, perfectly calculated. Rebecca's composure cracked slightly, pain flashing across her face. That's when Ethan stepped forward. "Actually, I think he'd be proud. She's taking his vision and making it better. Building communities, not just profits. Creating spaces where families can thrive, not just survive." Victor turned on him. "Mr. Carter, how convenient that you're here considering your project is under investigation." "An investigation based on false allegations. Every inspection has come back clean. You know that, of course. Just like you know who made those anonymous complaints." "That's a serious accusation." "Yes," Ethan said simply. "It is." The tension was electric. Then William Chen spoke. "Victor, I've reviewed the inspection reports myself. Mr. Carter's work is exemplary. In fact, I'm recommending to the board that we expand our contract with Carter Construction." Victor's jaw dropped. "William, you can't be serious." "I'm always serious about quality, Victor. Something you might remember before making any more anonymous complaints." The threat was subtle but clear. Victor excused himself, his supporters trailing after him. Rebecca touched Ethan's arm. "Thank you." Partners remember. She smiled the first real smile since they'd arrived. Dance with me? They moved onto the dance floor, Rebecca flowing into his arms like she belonged there. Other couples gave them space, creating a small bubble of privacy in the crowded room. You were magnificent, she said softly. William Chen doesn't impress easily. He cares about legacy. So do I. What kind of legacy? The kind where a little girl grows up knowing her father stood for something, where communities have centers that bring them together, where he pulled her closer, where someone brilliant and brave doesn't have to face the sharks alone. She looked up at him, eyes shining. Yeah, Ethan, Rebecca. There you are. They broke apart as a woman approached, tall and elegant with calculating eyes. She looked familiar, though Ethan couldn't place her. Lawrence hit, Rebecca said, her voice carefully neutral. I didn't know you were in town. Lauren. The name hit Ethan like ice water. His ex-wife stood there in a designer gown looking like she'd never left the high society she'd always craved. I wouldn't miss the social event of the season, Lauren said, her eyes fixed on Ethan. Hello, darling. You look well. Lauren, his voice was flat. What are you doing here? Victor Hale invited me. He thought I might be interested in hearing about your new situation. Her gaze shifted to Rebecca. So you're the woman who's turned my ex-husband into a knight in shining armor. And you're the woman who walked away from him and Mia, Rebecca replied calmly. Lauren's smile was sharp. Is that what he told you? There are always two sides to every story. Not to this one, Ethan said firmly. You made your choice, Lauren. You don't get to rewrite history now. Don't I? Victor seems very interested in my perspective, especially regarding your fitness as a father, all these late nights with a new girlfriend, leaving Mia with babysitters. The threat was clear. Ethan felt rage building, but Rebecca's hand on his arm stopped him. Mrs. Carter, or is it Ms.? Now, I'm Rebecca Sterling. I'm sure you're aware that any custody dispute would require significant legal resources, the kind that Sterling Development's legal team handles regularly, the kind that would examine in detail 2 years of abandonment, every missed birthday, every broken promise, every time Mia cried for a mother who chose Hollywood over her. Lauren's composure cracked. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening. I'm stating facts. Just as it's a fact that Victor Hale is using you to hurt Ethan and by extension me. You're a tool to him, nothing more. When he's done, he'll discard you just as easily as you discarded your family. How dare you? I dare because I care about them. Both of them. Something you never understood. Rebecca stepped closer. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk away. From this gala, from Victor's schemes, from any thought of disrupting Mia's life. In return, I won't use every resource at my disposal to ensure you never get within 100 yards of that little girl again. Lauren looked between them, perhaps seeing for the first time that Ethan wasn't alone anymore. This isn't over. Yes, Ethan said quietly. It is. It was over the day you walked out. Go back to LA, Lauren. There's nothing for you here. She left her exit less dramatic than she probably hoped. Rebecca sagged slightly against him. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have. You were perfect. Absolutely perfect. She's Mia's mother. I had no right. You had every right. You've been more of a mother to Mia in 2 months than Lauren was in 4 years. They were drawing stairs again, the confrontation having attracted attention. Rebecca straightened armor, sliding back into place. We should circulate, show them we're unbothered. But as they moved through the crowd, Ethan felt the shift. The whispers were different now, less scandalized, more respectful. Rebecca had publicly claimed him and Mia as hers to protect. In this world of careful alliances and calculated relationships, such genuine emotion was rare. Near midnight, they escaped to a balcony overlooking the city. The lights of San Francisco spread below them like earthbound stars. I used to come out here during these things, Rebecca said, leaning against the railing. Stand here alone and wonder what it would be like to have someone to escape with. And now? Now I know. She turned to him. Ethan, what are we doing? Really? Building something. What kind of something? He thought about it, choosing his words carefully. The kind built on solid foundations, the kind that lasts, the kind that can weather storms and attempted demolitions and corporate takeovers. You make it sound like a construction project. Maybe it is. The best kind where two separate structures become one stronger building. She moved into his arms. I love that you see the world in terms of building. Most people in my world only know how to tear down. Then they're in the wrong world. Maybe I am too. No. He tilted her chin up. You're exactly where you need to be, changing it from the inside, making it better. With you. If you'll have me and my precocious daughter, and my small company, and my complete inability to play corporate games. That's what I love about you, she said. Then froze. The word hung between them, loaded with meaning. Rebecca. I know it's too soon. I know we've only known each other 2 months. But when you know, you know. And I knew the moment you pulled me from that water that my life was never going to be the same. She took a shaky breath. I love you, Ethan Carter. I love your strength and your integrity and the way you read Mia 3 stories when she asks for one. I love that you see me not the CEO or the sterling name or the money, just Rebecca. And I love. He kissed her, pouring everything he couldn't say yet into the contact. When they broke apart, both were breathless. I'm falling in love with you too, he admitted. Have been since you bought Mia that mermaid bracelet. But Rebecca, your world could be our world, if you're willing to fight for it. Before he could answer, William Chen appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's something you both need to know. Victor just called an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. He's making his move. Rebecca's face hardened. Let him come. He has something, William warned. He was too confident. Be ready. After William left, they stood in silence, the weight of coming battle settling over them. I should go, Ethan finally said. Mia will be waiting up, pretending to be asleep. She does that every time I go out. I can tell because her stuffed animals are never in the same position. Rebecca smiled softly. She's checking on you, making sure you came home. Always. They left together, retrieving their vehicles in a parade of luxury cars that made Ethan's truck stand out like a statement. Rebecca didn't seem to care, kissing him goodbye in full view of lingering guests. Whatever happens Monday, she said, we face it together. Together, he agreed. The weekend before the emergency board meeting passed in a blur of preparation and dread. Rebecca spent Saturday at Ethan's kitchen table, surrounded by financial documents and legal briefs, while Mia practiced piano in the living room. The domestic normalcy of it all. Rebecca in reading glasses she'd never wear at the office, Ethan, making grilled cheese sandwiches, Mia occasionally wandering over to show them a drawing, stood in stark contrast to the corporate war they were preparing to fight. He'll attack the relationship, Rebecca said, highlighting another section of the company bylaws. Claim it's a conflict of interest, that I'm giving preferential treatment to your company. Are you? Ethan asked, setting a sandwich in front of her. No. Your bid was the best, lowest cost, highest quality, most innovative design. I actually recused myself from the final vote to avoid any appearance of impropriety, which Victor will conveniently forget to mention. Of course. She pulled off her glasses, rubbing her eyes. There's something else. Victor's been gathering proxy votes. If he has enough board members on his side, he can call for a vote of no confidence. Can he win? 6 months ago, no. Now, with the drowning, our relationship, Lauren's sudden reappearance. She shrugged. He's painted a picture of instability. Some board members are nervous. Mia appeared at Rebecca's elbow. You look sad. Just tired, sweetheart. When I'm tired, Daddy says I should rest. You can use my bed if you want. I have good stuffed animals for napping. Rebecca pulled Mia into a hug. Thank you. That's very generous. We share in this family, Mia said matter-of-factly, then skipped back to her piano. Family. The word made Rebecca's eyes glisten. Ethan reached over and took her hand. She's right, you know. We share. The good and the bad. This could get very bad, Ethan. If Victor wins, he'll not only fire me, he'll destroy your company out of spite. Everything you've built will survive. I've built from nothing before. I can do it again if I have to. He squeezed her hand. But you losing your father's company would break my heart, she admitted. But not as much as losing this. She gestured to the kitchen, to Mia's piano music, to their joined hands. I've had success. I've had power. I've never had this. That night after Mia was asleep, they sat on the porch watching the stars. Rebecca had changed into one of Ethan's t-shirts and sweats, her CEO armor completely abandoned. Tell me about when you started your company, she said, curled against his side. Not much to tell. Lauren was pregnant with Mia. We needed money. I'd been working construction since high school, figured I could do it better myself. Started with one truck and a lot of determination. And now, 15 full-time employees, dozens of subcontractors, more work than we can handle. Until Victor started his interference. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. None of this is your fault. Isn't it? If I hadn't gone to those rocks, if you hadn't saved me, then you'd be dead, Ethan said bluntly. And I'd be living half a life not knowing what I was missing. I'll take complicated and alive over simple and empty any day. Sunday morning brought unexpected visitors. William Chen arrived at Ethan's door with 2 other board members. Margaret Liu, a stern woman in her 70s, and James Morrison, a younger man who looked uncomfortable. May we come in? William asked. Ethan let them in, noting how they examined his modest home with curious eyes. Rebecca emerged from the kitchen, clearly surprised. William, what are you doing here? Due diligence, Margaret Liu said crisply. If we're going to battle tomorrow over your relationship with Mr. Carter, we should understand what we're fighting about. Or against, James Morrison added quietly. They sat in Ethan's living room, Mia peeking curiously from the hallway, until Ethan invited her in. She climbed onto Rebecca's lap without hesitation, a gesture not lost on the board members. Mr. Carter, Margaret began, tell us about your company. For the next hour, they grilled him about his business, his practices, his relationship with Rebecca. Ethan answered honestly, showing them photos of completed projects on his phone, including several they hadn't known his company had built. You did the pediatric wing at Community General, William asked, surprised. 3 years ago. Came in under budget and ahead of schedule. That's not in Sterling's portfolio, Margaret noted. It was before my time with Sterling. I've been building in this community for 8 years. Rebecca's company is just one client, albeit an important one. So this relationship isn't about the contract, James asked. Mia, who'd been quietly coloring, looked up. Daddy doesn't care about money. He cares about building things and helping people. And Rebecca makes him smile like he used to before Mommy left. The adults fell silent. Margaret Liu's stern expression softened slightly. And what about you, young lady? She asked Mia. What do you think about Rebecca? She's teaching me to use chopsticks, and she reads voices for all the characters in stories, and she never says she'll come and then doesn't, and she makes really good pancakes, but not as good as Daddy's, but I don't tell her that because it might hurt her feelings. William chuckled. You're very considerate. Daddy says being kind is more important than being right. Your daddy sounds wise. He is. That's why Rebecca loves him, and why he loves her back, even though he hasn't said it yet because he's scared of the feelings. Mia. Ethan's face burned. What? It's true. You told Uncle Miguel that you loved her, but you were scared to say it because what if she realizes she could do better? Rebecca turned to Ethan, her eyes wide. You said that maybe. She can't do better. Mia continued, oblivious to the adult tension. Daddy's the best. He saves people and builds things, and makes the best grilled cheese, and only sometimes forgets to match his socks. Margaret Liu actually smiled. Well, Mr. Carter, you have quite the character witness. After another half hour of conversation, the board members prepared to leave. At the door, William pulled Rebecca aside. He's not what Victor's been suggesting, William said quietly. I know. The child adores you. The feeling's mutual. Richard would have liked him. He valued integrity over everything. I know that too. William nodded. Tomorrow will be difficult. Victor has something he's too confident. Be prepared for anything. After they left, Rebecca collapsed on the couch. That was unexpected. But good, Ethan asked. I think so. Margaret Liu hasn't smiled in a board meeting in 5 years, and she actually laughed at one of Mia's stories. Our secret weapon, Ethan said, ruffling his daughter's hair. Can I come tomorrow? Mia asked. No, sweetheart. It's a grown-up meeting. Grown-ups make everything complicated. Mia sighed, returning to her coloring. That evening, Rebecca's phone rang constantly. Board members, executives, reporters who'd caught wind of tomorrow's meeting. She ignored them all, focusing instead on helping Mia with a puzzle while Ethan cooked dinner. Whatever happens, she said suddenly, this has been worth it. These moments, this feeling of belonging somewhere, it's worth everything else. Monday morning arrived gray and foreboding. Ethan dressed carefully in his best suit, the one he'd bought for his wedding and worn to his father's funeral. 2 beginnings and endings, and now possibly another. I should be there, he said, as Rebecca prepared to leave. No, your presence would just give Victor more ammunition. I need to face this myself. You're not by yourself. William's on your side, and after yesterday, probably Margaret too. 3 votes out of 12. Then convince the others. You're brilliant, Rebecca. Show them why you deserve to lead. She kissed him goodbye, and he tasted her fear beneath the determination. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too. We've already won the important thing. Everything else is just details. After she left, Ethan tried to focus on work, but concentration was impossible. He drove to the community center site where his crew was making progress despite the harassment. Miguel took one look at him and pulled him aside. Board meeting today. Yeah. She'll win. That woman's a fighter. What if she doesn't? Then we fight harder. We've weathered worse storms, boss. But had they? By noon, with no word from Rebecca, Ethan's nerves were frayed. He was reviewing invoices when his phone rang. Not Rebecca, but William Chen. You need to see this, William said without preamble. Check your email. Ethan opened the attachment and felt his blood turn to ice. It was a photograph from some charity event 2 years ago. Lauren was there glamorous in a red dress standing next to Victor Hale. They were clearly together, his arm around her waist, both smiling for the camera. They've been planning this, William said. Victor and your ex-wife. This photo was taken 3 months before Rebecca's father died. He's been planning to take over the company that long. Longer, and apparently he's been cultivating allies, including Lauren. The question is why she would... William paused. Mr. Carter, is there any reason Lauren would want to hurt you specifically? Ethan thought about it. I got primary custody. The court ordered her to pay child support, which she never has. I haven't pursued it because I just wanted her gone. Money, William said grimly. Victor probably offered her money to come back to create chaos. The meeting is recessing for lunch. Rebecca's holding her own, but Victor just played his trump card, which is security footage from the Fairmont. It shows Rebecca and you on the balcony, but the angle, it looks compromising, like you were pushing her against the railing. He's suggesting your relationship is volatile, that you might be dangerous. That's insane. Of course it is, but combined with the inspection complaints, Lauren's sudden reappearance, and Rebecca's recent instability, he's painting a picture. Some board members are wavering. What can I do? Can you get here? With documentation about your company, your record, anything that proves you're who Rebecca says you are. Give me an hour. Ethan called Miguel to bring everything from the office, contracts, commendations, letters from satisfied clients. Then he called Mrs. Chen to pick up Mia from school. His daughter would have to wait. Rebecca needed him now. He arrived at Sterling Development's headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that stretched toward the sky like an accusation. The security guard tried to stop him, but William Chen appeared vouching for him. They're reconvening in 10 minutes, William said, leading him to a conference room where Rebecca was sitting with Margaret Liu and James Morrison. Rebecca, I'm sorry, but I thought Ethan... Rebecca stood surprised and something like relief flooding her face. What are you doing here? Fighting, he said, simply setting down the box of documents. You don't face the sharks alone, remember. Victor will use your presence against us. Let him. I'm tired of him controlling the narrative. Margaret Liu looked through the documents, her expression thoughtful. Mr. Carter, some of these contracts you've been building for Sterling's competitors. I build for anyone who needs quality work. Sterling isn't my only client, just my favorite one. Because of Rebecca. Because Sterling Developments under Rebecca's leadership cares about more than profit. The community center could make 20% more as luxury condos, but Rebecca chose to serve the community instead. Her father would have built the condos, James Morrison said quietly. Maybe. But Rebecca isn't her father. She's better. The door opened and Victor entered with several board members. His smile faltered when he saw Ethan. Mr. Carter, this is a closed session. I invited him, William said smoothly. As CEO, Rebecca has the right to call witnesses in her defense. She's not CEO if the board votes otherwise, Victor snapped. But I am until that vote, Rebecca said, standing, and I'm tired of your games, Victor. The board reconvened 12 members around a massive conference table that probably cost more than Ethan made in a month. He sat behind Rebecca, close enough to provide support, but not interfering. Victor resumed his attack immediately. As I was saying before lunch, Ms. Sterling's judgment has become increasingly erratic. First, the near drowning, which was an accident, Rebecca interrupted. Was it a cry for help, a sign of instability? Victor clicked a remote and the security footage from the gala appeared on a screen. And now this relationship with a contractor that raises serious questions about propriety and even safety. That's doctored, Ethan said, standing. That footage has been edited. You're out of order, Mr. Carter, Victor said coldly. No, you are. Rebecca stood too. Board members, Mr. Hale has orchestrated a campaign of harassment against both me and Mr. Carter. False inspection reports manipulated evidence, even recruiting Mr. Carter's ex-wife to create drama. These are serious accusations, one board member said. Yes, they are. Rebecca pulled out her phone. Which is why I recorded my conversation with Lauren Carter 2 days ago. Victor's face went white. What? Rebecca played the recording. Lauren's voice filled the room clear and damning. Victor promised me $50,000 to come back to threaten custody. He said if I could make Ethan look unstable, you'd look unstable by association. He had this whole plan, the inspections, the rumors even, that photographer at the gala who just happened to catch you at the perfect angle. Why are you telling me this? Rebecca's recorded voice asked. Because Victor's not paying enough for me to destroy my daughter's life. And because I saw you with her. With Mia. You love her. I never did not the way I should have. She deserves better than being a pawn in Victor's game. The recording ended. The boardroom was silent. That could be fabricated, Victor stammered. It's not, William Chen said. I've had our security team investigating since yesterday. Mr. Hale, you've been using company resources to conduct personal vendettas. You've falsified reports, manipulated evidence, and attempted to destroy the reputation of our CEO for your own gain. I was trying to save this company, Victor exploded. She's weak. Her father would be ashamed. My father, Rebecca said quietly, would be ashamed of you. You were his friend Victor. He trusted you. And this is how you honor his memory, by trying to destroy everything he built. I helped build it. I should be running it. But you're not, Margaret Liu said coldly. And after this display, you never will be. I move to terminate Victor Hale's employment immediately. Seconded, said William. The vote was unanimous. Victor stood slowly, his face twisted with rage. This isn't over. I'll sue. You'll do nothing, Rebecca said calmly. Because if you do, I'll pursue criminal charges for corporate espionage, fraud, and harassment. Take the generous severance package we're offering and disappear, Victor. It's more than you deserve. After Victor left, escorted by security, the board voted again, this time on Rebecca's continued leadership. 11 votes in favor, 1 abstention. However, Margaret Liu said, we do have concerns about the appearance of favoritism regarding Mr. Carter's contracts. Then let's address that now, Rebecca said. She turned to Ethan. Carter Construction withdrew from all Sterling development projects effective immediately. Rebecca Noyes, it's the right thing, she said, though her voice carried regret. Your company can stand on its own. You don't need us. But the community center? Will be completed by Carter Construction under the existing contract, but no new Sterling projects. Agreed. Ethan understood. She was protecting both of them, removing any suggestion of impropriety. Agreed. Well then, William Chen said, standing. I believe we're done here. Rebecca, congratulations on retaining your position. Mr. Carter, it was enlightening to meet you. As the board members filed out, Margaret Liu stopped beside Ethan. You would have fought all of them for her, wouldn't you? Every single one. She smiled a real smile that transformed her stern features. Good. She deserves someone who'll fight for her. God knows she's been fighting alone long enough. After everyone left, Rebecca collapsed into a chair, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. Ethan pulled her into his arms, and she began to cry great gulping sobs of relief and exhaustion. It's over, she gasped. It's finally over. You were amazing. I was terrified. When he showed that footage, I thought, but you didn't give up. You fought back. I learned from the best. She looked up at him. You really came to fight for me. Always, even if it costs me Sterling's contracts. There are other contracts, Ethan, bigger ones. The board members were impressed today. I guarantee you'll be getting calls. I don't care about that. What do you care about? You, Mia, building our life together. Even without the Sterling projects. Rebecca, I loved you when I thought you were just a drowning stranger. The contracts were never what this was about. She kissed him then, right there in the Sterling Development boardroom, with the afternoon sun streaming through the windows and the ghost of corporate warfare still lingering in the air. Let's go home, she said. Your place or mine, ours, she said simply. Wherever that is, as long as we're together. They picked up Mia from Mrs. Chen's, their daughter, launching herself at them with typical enthusiasm. Did you win? She asked Rebecca. We won, Rebecca confirmed, hugging her tightly. Good. Can we have pizza to celebrate? Whatever you want, sweetheart. As they drove toward home, Ethan's home, but increasingly theirs. Mia chattered about her day while Rebecca held Ethan's hand across the console. The war was won, but challenges remained. Lauren was still out there, though her confession to Rebecca suggested she might finally leave them alone. The community center still needed to be completed, and they still had to figure out how to blend their very different worlds. But those were tomorrow's problems. Today they were together, intact and free from Victor's shadow. Daddy, Mia said as they pulled into the driveway. Is Rebecca going to live with us now? Ethan and Rebecca exchanged glances. They hadn't discussed it, hadn't made any concrete plans beyond surviving the day. Would you like that? Rebecca asked carefully. Yes, but you have to promise something. What's that? No more scary swimming, and Daddy's not allowed to rescue any more drowning people. My heart can't take it. They laughed, the tension of the day finally breaking. As they walked into the house, Ethan reflected on how much had changed since that gray morning at Monterey Beach. He'd saved a life and gained a future. He'd pulled a stranger from the waves and found his partner. What are you thinking about? Rebecca asked as Mia ran ahead to feed her goldfish. The day we met. How you grabbed my wrist and asked me not to go. And you didn't, she said softly. You stayed. I'll always stay. Promise. I promise. No more drowning CEOs, no more corporate conspiracies, no more bitter ex-wives with vendettas, just us building something together. Building what? A family, a future, a life worth saving. That night, after pizza and ice cream and Mia's insistence on a victory dance party in the living room, they stood on the porch watching the stars. Rebecca wore Ethan's t-shirt again, her CEO armor abandoned in favor of something softer, truer. I need to tell you something, she said, about the community center. What about it? I want to name it after my father, but not Sterling. His actual name, Richard. The Richard Center for Community Development. That's beautiful. He would have hated it. She laughed. No corporate branding, no tax advantages, just pure community service. Then why? Because that's who he was before the company consumed him. When he used to take me to watch sunrises and tell me stories about building something that mattered. I want to honor that man, not the corporate titan he became. You're honoring him by being better than he was. I'm trying. She leaned against him. Ethan, about the contracts? Don't. We agreed, and it's the right decision. My company will thrive with or without Sterling Development. But with would be nice. With you is all that matters. The rest is just business. A week later, the community center was back on track. The false inspections had been cleared, the stop work orders lifted. Ethan's crew worked with renewed energy, knowing they were building something that mattered. Rebecca visited the site often, not as CEO, but as Ethan's partner, bringing coffee for the crew and helping Mia with her homework in the construction trailer. The workers had adopted her as one of their own, especially after she'd fought for them against Victor. You know, Miguel said one afternoon, watching Rebecca explain blueprint reading to Mia, I never thought I'd see the day when a billionaire CEO would be sitting in our trailer teaching a 6-year-old about load-bearing walls. She's not your typical CEO, Ethan replied. No kidding, she actually knows which end of a hammer to hold. Her father taught her, said you can't build an empire without understanding foundations. Smart man, raised a smart daughter. Who's talking about me? Rebecca asked, appearing at Ethan's shoulder. Everyone, Miguel said with a grin. You're famous now, the CEO who took down Victor Hale and saved Carter Construction. I didn't save anything. You all did that yourselves. With a little help, Ethan said, wrapping an arm around her waist. Speaking of help, Rebecca said, I have news. 3 board members called today. They want to hire Carter Construction for their personal projects. Margaret Liu wants a complete renovation of her Napa estate. Are you serious? Completely. Apparently she was impressed by your documentation and Mia's testimonial. She specifically requested the contractor whose daughter says he only sometimes forgets to match his socks. The crew laughed, and Ethan felt something ease in his chest. They were going to be okay, more than okay. That evening, as they walked through the partially completed community center, Rebecca stopped in what would be the main hall. This is where we'll put the dedication plaque, she said, running her hand along the wall. The Richard Center built by Carter Construction, funded by Sterling Developments. A partnership. Like us. Exactly like us. She turned to him. Ethan, I've been thinking. My house is huge and empty. Your house is warm and full of life. What if... Yes. You don't even know what I was going to say. Doesn't matter. If it involves you, me, and Mia under the same roof, the answer is yes. What if I said my house, then we'd make it warm and full of life? What if I said your house, then we'd make room? What if I said we should sell both and buy something new, something that's ours from the start? Ethan considered this. Actually, that's perfect. Mia would love to help pick it out. With a big yard for a dog. She's been asking for a dog for 2 years. And an office where you can do your blueprints. And a library where you can hide from corporate sharks. And a kitchen big enough for family dinners. Family. Ethan pulled her close. I like the sound of that. Me too. They stood there in the skeleton of the building that had brought them together, surrounded by sawdust and possibility. Through the unfinished walls, they could see the sun setting over Monterey Bay, the same waters that had nearly claimed Rebecca and had given them both a second chance. No regrets, Rebecca asked. Only one. What? I wish I'd gone to that beach earlier. Think of all the time we missed. Or maybe we met exactly when we were supposed to, when we were both ready to build something together. When did you get so philosophical? When a contractor taught me that the strongest structures aren't built alone. As they walked back to the trailer where Mia was waiting with Miguel, probably being taught inappropriate Spanish words, Ethan realized that everything had changed and nothing had. He was still a single father trying to build a good life for his daughter. Rebecca was still a CEO fighting to honor her father's legacy. But now they were doing it together, 2 separate foundations becoming one stronger structure. The emergency board meeting that could have destroyed everything had instead cleared the way for something better. Victor was gone, his poison extracted from Sterling Developments. Lauren had disappeared back to Los Angeles, her confession ensuring she'd never threaten them again. And in the rubble of corporate warfare, something unexpected had grown, a family built not on blood or obligation, but on choice and love, and the shared understanding that the best things in life were worth fighting for. Daddy Rebecca, Mia called from the trailer door. Miguel taught me a bad word in Spanish. Miguel. Ethan groaned. I told her not to tell you, Miguel protested. She's 6, Miguel. 6-year-olds tell everything. Not everything, Mia said seriously. I didn't tell him about Rebecca's nightmare last night or how you sang her that song Grandma used to sing to me. Rebecca blushed. Mia, sweetheart. What? It's true. Daddy has a nice voice when he thinks no one's listening. Out of the mouths of babes, Miguel laughed. Boss, you've got yourself a handful there. 2 handfuls, actually. 3, Rebecca said, putting her hand on her stomach with a mysterious smile. Ethan froze. Rebecca, are you? I don't know yet, but maybe. Would that be okay? Would it be okay? Ethan swept her into his arms, spinning her around while Mia cheered and Miguel whooped. It would be perfect. We don't know for sure yet, Rebecca warned, but she was smiling too. Then we'll find out together, like everything else. As the sun set, completely casting the construction site in purple shadows, Ethan looked at his unconventional family, his brilliant daughter, his remarkable partner, his loyal crew, and knew that every risk had been worth it. The rescue at Monterey Beach hadn't just saved Rebecca's life, it had saved all of them from lives half-lived from settling for less than they deserved. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The community center needed to be finished, a new house needed to be found, and maybe, just maybe, a nursery needed to be planned. But tonight they were together, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 3 days later, the pregnancy test confirmed what Rebecca's smile had already suggested. Ethan found her sitting on the bathroom floor of her executive suite office, holding the positive result with trembling hands. I did 3 tests, she said when he knelt beside her. All positive, we're having a baby. How do you feel about that? Terrified, elated, completely unprepared. She looked up at him. I'm 38, Ethan. I never thought this would happen for me. You're going to be an amazing mother. You already are to Mia. But this is different. She stopped, overwhelmed. This is ours, he finished. And we're going to figure it out together just like everything else. That evening, they told Mia over her favorite dinner of spaghetti and meatballs. Her reaction was pure 6-year-old joy. A baby. Can I name it? Can it sleep in my room? Will it like mermaids? Slow down, princess? Ethan laughed. The baby won't be here for months. How many months? About 8, Rebecca said. Mia counted on her fingers. That's almost my birthday. A few weeks after, if everything goes according to plan. This is the best present ever. Better than the bike Daddy promised. Hey, you're still getting the bike. The next morning brought unexpected complications. Rebecca arrived at Sterling Developments to find her office in chaos. Jennifer, her assistant, met her at the elevator with a panicked expression. There's been a leak, Jennifer said. Someone released internal documents to the press about the community center project. They're saying you manipulated the bidding process to favor Carter Construction. Rebecca felt the blood drain from her face. That's impossible. I recused myself from the final vote. The documents are from earlier in the process. Emails between you and your father discussing the project dated 2 years ago, before Carter Construction even bid. In her office, Rebecca pulled up the emails on her secure server. They were real but taken completely out of context. Her father had been discussing his vision for giving back to the community, and she'd mentioned several local contractors who might be suitable, including Carter Construction. This looks bad, Jennifer said quietly. It looks like what Victor wanted it to look like, impropriety where none exists. Rebecca grabbed her phone. Get William Chen on the line and our legal team. We need to get ahead of this. But the damage was spreading. Within hours, 3 news outlets had picked up the story. Sterling heiress in contract scandal, read one headline. CEO's lover gets sweetheart deal, proclaimed another. Ethan was at the construction site when Miguel showed him the news on his phone. Boss, you need to see this. Reading the articles, Ethan felt rage building. They'd twisted everything, making Rebecca look corrupt and him look like an opportunist. This is bull, Miguel said. Everyone knows you won that bid fair and square. But not everyone knows Rebecca. They'll believe this because it fits their narrative of the privileged heiress playing favorites. His phone rang. Rebecca. I'm handling it, she said immediately. Don't talk to any reporters. Don't make any statements. Rebecca, I mean it, Ethan. Anything you say will be twisted. Let legal handle this. What about the baby? The stress? The baby's fine. I'm fine. Just focus on the center. The best response is to finish it on time and under budget. But she didn't sound fine. She sounded exhausted and stressed, exactly what she didn't need in early pregnancy. That afternoon, a familiar figure appeared at the construction site. Lauren approached the trailer where Ethan was working, looking uncharacteristically subdued. "Before you throw me out," she said, "I'm here to help. You've done enough." "I know, that's why I'm here." She pulled out a tablet. "I recorded everything, every conversation with Victor, every payment, every instruction to cause chaos. I thought I was being smart getting insurance in case he didn't pay. Now I realize I can use it to fix this." Ethan stared at her. "Why would you do that?" "Because I saw you three at that gala, a real family, the kind I was too selfish to want." She paused. "And because Mia deserves better than having her father's reputation destroyed by lies." "What do you want in return?" "Nothing. I'm leaving Ethan, for real this time. I got a role in a series filming in Vancouver. I'll be gone for at least a year. And Mia deserves the mother she has, not the one she was born to." Lauren's eyes were wet. "Rebecca loves her. I saw it. That's more than I ever gave her." She handed him the tablet. "Everything's on there. Victor discussing the plan to plant those documents, how he'd held onto them for 2 years waiting for the right moment. He even brags about hiring someone to hack Jennifer's email to release them. This is evidence of criminal conspiracy. Yes, use it." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Tell Mia, tell her I'm sorry, and that I hope her new sibling gets the mother I couldn't be." "You know about hospital gossip? Rebecca was seen in the maternity ward yesterday for her first appointment." Lauren smiled sadly. "Congratulations, Ethan. You got the life you deserve." After she left, Ethan called Rebecca. "You need to come to the site. Now." She arrived within 20 minutes, William Chen and the head of legal with her. When they reviewed Lauren's recordings, the legal team immediately went into overdrive. "This is enough for criminal charges," the lawyer said. "Victor didn't just leak documents, he committed corporate espionage, conspiracy, and fraud." "Do it," Rebecca said coldly. "Press every charge." "It'll be messy," William warned. "Public trial media coverage." "Let it be messy. I'm tired of playing defense." That night, as they sat in Ethan's living room with Mia coloring at their feet, Rebecca finally let her exhaustion show. "I thought it was over," she said. "I thought Victor was done." "Wounded animals are the most dangerous," Ethan replied, rubbing her shoulders. "But this time we have proof. Your father's actual correspondence, the full context, Lauren's recordings. He overplayed his hand. The board's meeting tomorrow. Emergency session again. Will they support you?" "After this, they'd better." She leaned into his massage. "I'm so tired of fighting for the right to run my own company." "After tomorrow, you won't have to. Victor's going to jail, the truth will come out, and we can focus on what matters. The center, the family, the baby, the life we're building." Mia looked up from her coloring. "Are you sad about the mean man again?" "A little," Rebecca admitted. "Don't be. Daddy won't let him hurt you, and neither will I." She held up her drawing. "Look, I made our family. There's Daddy and you and me and the baby and the dog we're going to get in the house with the big yard." "It's perfect," Rebecca said, tears in her eyes. "Don't cry. Happy pictures are supposed to make you happy." "These are happy tears, sweetheart." "Grown-ups are weird," Mia declared, returning to her coloring. The emergency board meeting the next day was swift and decisive. Presented with evidence of Victor's criminal actions, the board unanimously voted to support Rebecca and pursue full legal action against their former vice president. "I owe you an apology, Margaret Liu said after the vote. "We should have seen Victor's machinations sooner." "He was careful," Rebecca replied, "and he played on existing prejudices about nepotism and female leadership." "Which we allowed," William added. "Your father would be proud of how you've handled this, Rebecca. You've shown more strength and integrity than he ever did." "Don't speak ill of the dead William." "I'm not. Richard was brilliant, but he was also ruthless. You're brilliant and compassionate. That's why Sterling Developments will thrive under your leadership in ways it never could under his. Within a week, Victor Hale was arrested on multiple charges. The news cycle, which had been savage in its coverage of the supposed scandal, now turned its fury on him. Corporate saboteur exposed replaced contract scandal in the headlines. Rebecca held a press conference standing alongside William Chen and the board presenting the truth with calm precision. She didn't mention the pregnancy or elaborate on her relationship with Ethan beyond confirming they were together. She focused on the facts Carter Construction had won the bid fairly. The community center was ahead of schedule and under budget, and Sterling Developments would continue its mission of building spaces that served communities, not just profit margins. My father built an empire, she concluded. I intend to build a legacy, one that puts people first. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Suddenly, Rebecca wasn't the ice queen or the privileged heiress. She was the CEO who'd fought corruption in her own company and won. That evening, Ethan found her standing in what would be the community center's library, hands resting on her still flat stomach. Thinking about the future, he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Thinking about names, actually. Richard if it's a boy. After your father. After the man he was before ambition consumed him. The one who taught me about foundations. And if it's a girl, Grace. For the grace you showed in saving me. The grace we found together. Grace Carter, I like it. Carter. She turned in his arms. Not Sterling. We're building something new. Remember, not my name or yours, but ours. Carter Sterling. How about Sterling Carter? How about we let Mia decide she'll have to spell it on school forms? They were interrupted by Miguel calling out, Boss Miss Sterling. Sterling. You need to see this. They found the crew gathered around the main hall where they'd installed the dedication plaque Rebecca had designed, but beside it was another plaque smaller that hadn't been there this morning. This community center stands as testament to the power of unexpected connections, built by Carter Construction, funded by Sterling Developments, and inspired by a 6-year-old who believes in mermaids. May all who enter here find the courage to save each other. Below it was a date, not today's date, but the date Ethan had pulled Rebecca from the ocean. Who did this? Rebecca asked, tears streaming down her face. The crew exchanged glances, then Miguel stepped forward. All of us. Every subcontractor, every worker who's been on this site. We took up a collection, had it made. Because what you two have fighting for each other, standing together against that corporate bastard, that's what community really means. Rebecca hugged Miguel, then each crew member in turn. Ethan watched his carefully professional CEO completely abandon corporate protocol in favor of genuine human connection. This is why I love her, he told Miguel quietly. She has the biggest heart hidden under all that armor. Not so hidden anymore, boss. As spring arrived, the community center neared completion. Rebecca's pregnancy progressed smoothly, though she dealt with morning sickness during several board meetings, leading to jokes about the CEO literally giving her all to the company. They found a house, a Victorian fixer-upper halfway between the beach and downtown with good bones that needed work. Ethan's crew volunteered their weekends to help renovate, turning it into their project. You don't have to do this, Ethan told them. Family helps family, Miguel replied simply. Besides, little Mia promised to make us cookies. I'm learning to bake, Mia announced proudly. Rebecca's teaching me. We only burned 1 batch. 2. Rebecca corrected, emerging from the house covered in paint. But the 3rd batch was perfect. Seeing her like this paint-splattered pregnant, laughing with his daughter and crew, Ethan fell in love all over again. This was who she really was beneath the suits and board meetings. What? She asked, catching him staring. Just thinking about how that drowning mermaid turned out to be pretty handy with a paintbrush. Flatterer, come help me with the nursery. Mia insists it needs an underwater theme. For the baby to know about mermaids, Mia explained. The nursery became Mia's project with Rebecca's enthusiastic support. They painted murals of friendly sea creatures, hung mobile sculptures of dolphins and whales, and found the softest sea green carpet. It's perfect, Rebecca said, standing in the finished room with Mia. The baby will love it, Mia agreed. Do you think it's a brother or sister? We find out tomorrow at the ultrasound. Want to come? Can I? Of course. You're the big sister. You should be there for important moments. The next day in the ultrasound room, they got their answer. It's a girl, the technician announced. Grace? Mia whispered. Baby Grace. She's healthy, Rebecca asked anxiously. Perfect. Strong heartbeat, right on track for development. Ethan squeezed Rebecca's hand, watching their daughter on the screen. Another girl to protect, to love, to raise with strength and kindness. She's going to be tough, the technician commented. Look at her kicking. Like her mom, Ethan said. Like her sister, Rebecca corrected, watching Mia bounce with excitement. That evening, they celebrated at the beach, the same stretch where everything had begun. Mia ran ahead collecting shells for baby Grace, while Ethan and Rebecca walked hand in hand. Victor's trial starts next week, Rebecca said quietly. You'll have to testify. Yes, but I'm not afraid anymore. He has no power over us now. He never really did. He just made us think he did. Smoke and mirrors, Rebecca agreed, while we were building something real. They watched Mia dance in the waves, fearless and free. I never thanked you, Rebecca said suddenly. For what? For seeing me. Not the CEO, not the Sterling name, not the money or the power, just me. That's all I ever saw. A woman fighting to breathe literally and figuratively. And you gave me breath, in every way that matters. 2 weeks later, the community center held its soft opening. Before the official dedication, they invited the families from the neighborhood to explore. Children ran through the halls, parents examined the classrooms and daycare facilities. Elderly residents tested the comfortable chairs in the library. It's perfect, one mother said to Rebecca, tears in her eyes. My kids will have somewhere safe to learn to play. You don't know what this means. I think I do, Rebecca replied, hand on her growing belly. Ethan found her later in the art room watching Mia teach younger children how to finger paint. She's a natural teacher, Rebecca observed. She gets that from you. You've taught her so much these past months. She's taught me more. About resilience, joy, finding magic in ordinary moments. Speaking of magic, Ethan pulled out a small box. I know we've done everything backwards, moved in together, got pregnant, fought corporate wars, but maybe we could do one thing the traditional way. Rebecca's hand flew to her mouth as he knelt. Rebecca Sterling, you crashed into my life like a force of nature. You've made me braver, stronger, better. You've given my daughter a mother and our family another child. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to fight alone again? Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes. Mia, who'd been secretly watching, erupted in cheers. Finally, I've been waiting forever. Forever? Ethan asked, slipping the ring onto Rebecca's finger, a simple, solitaire, elegant, and unassuming perfect for a woman who'd learned to value substance over show. At least 3 whole weeks, Mia said seriously. The construction crew, who'd apparently also been watching, burst into applause. Miguel produced champagne from somewhere, and suddenly they were having an impromptu engagement party in the unfinished community center. When, Rebecca asked later, admiring her ring, while Mia regaled the crew with wedding planning ideas. Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next year, whenever. Before Grace arrives. I want to fit in a dress, and I want Mia to be our flower girl while she's still little enough to throw petals with abandon. June then, at the beach where we met. Where you saved me. Where we saved each other. The trial of Victor Hale began the following Monday. Rebecca testified with calm precision, detailing his systematic attempts to undermine her leadership and destroy both her reputation and Ethan's business. Lauren's recordings were played, Victor's own voice damning him repeatedly. His defense attorney tried to paint Rebecca as an unstable leader who'd nearly died due to poor judgment, but the prosecutor shut that down quickly. Ms. Sterling had an accident. Mr. Hale committed deliberate corporate sabotage. These are not equivalent. The jury agreed. Victor was found guilty on all counts: corporate espionage, fraud, conspiracy, and harassment. The sentence was 5 years in federal prison and massive fines. As they left the courthouse, Rebecca stopped on the steps. "It's really over," she said, wonder in her voice. "That part is," Ethan agreed. "The rest is just beginning." Spring turned towards summer and the community center's official dedication arrived. The mayor spoke. William Chen represented the Sterling board, but the moment that mattered came when Mia cut the ribbon with specially made child-safe scissors. "I declare this center open for everyone," she announced proudly. The crowd cheered and the doors opened to reveal the finished space, bright, welcoming, already alive with possibility. "Your father would be proud," William told Rebecca quietly. "I hope so. But honestly, I'm more concerned about making my daughter proud. Both of them." She stood with Ethan, watching families explore the center, children already gravitating toward the playroom and library. Her hand rested on her belly where Grace kicked energetically, perhaps sensing the excitement. "No regrets?" Ethan asked their private ritual. "None. You?" "Just one. Still wishing we'd met sooner." "No. Wishing I'd brought tissues. Mia's crying happy tears again, and she's using my shirt as a handkerchief." They laughed, watching their daughter hand out mermaid stickers to younger children, self-appointed ambassador of the new center. Later that evening, as they stood in their renovated Victorian home surrounded by boxes they still hadn't unpacked and paint samples for rooms they hadn't decided on, Rebecca pulled out a folder. "What's this?" Ethan asked. "A proposal, from the board." His stomach tensed. "What kind of proposal?" "They want to create a new division, Sterling Community Development, focused entirely on projects like the center buildings that serve communities first, profits second. They want me to head it while maintaining my CEO role." "That's amazing, but won't it be too much with the baby coming?" "That's why I want to propose something else, a partnership. Sterling Carter Community Development, equal partners, equal say. You bring the construction expertise and ground-level understanding of what communities need. I bring the funding and corporate infrastructure." "Rebecca, I can't match your investment. Not financial partnership. True partnership. Your knowledge, my resources. Your integrity, my connections. Building a legacy for our daughters." "Our daughters?" Ethan repeated, loving the sound of it. "So, yes, of course, yes. But I have a condition." "What?" "Mia gets to name our first project." "Deal." They shook on it, then kissed, sealing both a business partnership and personal commitment that had grown from the most unlikely beginning. That night, as they lay in bed with Mia sprawled between them, she'd had a nightmare and crawled in around midnight. Rebecca whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For jumping into those waves, for choosing to save a stranger, for seeing past everything to who I really was. Thank you for holding on, for fighting to breathe, for grabbing my wrist and not letting go." "I'll never let go," she promised. "Neither will I." Mia stirred, mumbling in her sleep about mermaids and baby sisters and wedding dresses. They smiled over her head, parents united in love for this child and the one still growing. Outside, fog rolled in from the Pacific, the same ocean that had brought them together. It whispered against the windows like a reminder life was fragile, precious, worth fighting for, worth saving. In 2 months, they would marry on the beach where it all began. In 3 months, Grace would arrive, completing their family. The community center would thrive, serving hundreds of families. Sterling Carter Community Development would break ground on 3 new projects, all named by Mia with her characteristic creativity. But tonight, in this moment, they were simply a family. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and solid and built to last. "I love you," Ethan whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Rebecca replied. "Love you 3, Mia mumbled, still mostly asleep. 4, Rebecca corrected, hand on her belly. "Love you 4. And in the gentle darkness of their home, surrounded by the family they'd built from rescue and chance and choice, they slept. The ocean continued its eternal rhythm in the distance, marking time, not in corporate quarters or construction deadlines, but in heartbeats and breaths, in the simple, profound act of continuing. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. wedding planning and baby preparations, corporate meetings, and construction schedules. The beautiful chaos of blending two lives into one. But it would also bring Mia's laughter, the baby's kicks, stolen kisses in the construction trailer, and quiet moments on the porch watching sunsets. It would bring life, messy, complicated, wonderful life. The kind worth diving into dangerous waters to save. The kind worth fighting corporate sharks to protect. The kind worth every risk they'd taken to get here. The fog thickened, embracing their Victorian home like a protective shroud. Inside, the family slept on, unaware that their story had already become legend in their small community, the CEO and the contractor, the rescue and the romance, the little girl who believed in mermaids and made everyone else believe too. June arrived with unusual clarity on the California coast, as if nature itself had decided to cooperate for their wedding day. Ethan stood at the edge of Monterey Beach. At sunrise, Miguel beside him as his best man, watching the crew set up white chairs on the sand. The same spot where he'd pulled Rebecca from the waves 8 months ago was now decorated with flowing white fabric and clusters of sea roses that Mia had insisted on. "Nervous?" Miguel asked, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. "No," Ethan replied honestly. "This is the one thing I've never been more sure of." Even with her being, Miguel gestured vaguely at the elegant setup that probably cost more than most people's entire weddings. "She's not her money, Miguel. She never was." "I know, boss. Just making sure you remember that when you see her in what I'm told is a very expensive dress." Ethan laughed, but his attention was caught by movement near the parking area. Rebecca's car had arrived, though she'd stayed at a hotel last night, insisting on some traditional separation before the ceremony. He could see Mia bouncing excitedly in her flower girl dress, a confection of seafoam green that she'd picked out herself. "Daddy!" She ran to him across the sand, her basket of rose petals swinging wildly. "Rebecca looks like a princess, a real one." And baby Grace kicked 3 times when we put the dress on, like she was saying hello. "Slow down, sweetheart. Where's Rebecca?" "In the tent with the makeup lady and Jennifer and Ms. Liu. Ms. Liu is crying. She said she never cries, but she's crying." Margaret Liu crying was indeed a minor miracle. The stern board member had surprisingly agreed to be Rebecca's matron of honor, claiming someone needed to ensure proper protocol was followed. But Ethan suspected she'd grown genuinely fond of Rebecca over these past months of trials. The guests were arriving a mixture that only their unusual story could produce. Construction workers in their best clothes sat beside Sterling Development board members. Families from the community center mixed with corporate executives. Even William Chen had come despite claiming he hadn't attended a beach wedding since the 60s. "It's time," the officiant said, a local judge who'd been charmed by their story. Ethan took his position, Mia beside him, as the world's most enthusiastic flower girl. The string quartet began playing. Rebecca had wanted something simple, but Mia had insisted on proper wedding music. Then Rebecca appeared, and Ethan forgot how to breathe. She wore a flowing white dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and simple, accommodating her 7-month pregnancy with grace. Her hair was swept up with small white flowers woven through it, and she carried a bouquet of the same sea roses that decorated the aisle. But it was her smile that stopped his heart, radiant, confident, and entirely focused on him. William Chen walked her down the aisle, having volunteered for the role, when she'd mentioned her father was gone and she'd walk alone. "No one in my company walks alone, Wuba," he'd said gruffly, and that had been that. As she reached him, Rebecca whispered, "You saved me again." "How?" "By being here. By choosing this. By not running when things got complicated." "Never," he whispered back. The ceremony was simple, their vows personal. Rebecca went first, her voice clear despite the tears tracking down her cheeks. "Ethan Carter, you pulled me from the ocean, but more than that, you pulled me from a life half-lived. You showed me that strength isn't about standing alone, but about having the courage to let others stand with you. You gave me a daughter who teaches me joy every day, and another who reminds me with every kick that miracles happen. I promise to build with you, to stand with you, to fight for you, and beside you for all the days of our lives." Ethan had to clear his throat twice before he could speak. "Rebecca Sterling, you crashed into my life like a force of nature and changed everything I thought I knew about courage. You took my daughter's heart and healed it with your presence. You took my small dreams and showed me how to build bigger ones. You face down corporate sharks and bitter exes and your own fears, all while creating new life and new hope. I promise to be your anchor in every storm, your foundation for every dream, and your partner in every adventure. And I promise, Mia piped up, making everyone laugh, to teach baby Grace about mermaids and to not use bad words Uncle Miguel teaches me, and to always remind you both when you're being silly grown-ups. That wasn't part of the ceremony, sweetheart, Rebecca said, but she was smiling through her tears. It should be, Mia declared. I'm part of this family too. You're absolutely right, the judge said, charmed. Mia, do you promise to be the best big sister you can be? I promise. Then by the power vested in me by the state of California, and with the blessing of this rather precocious flower girl, I pronounce you husband and wife. Ethan kissed Rebecca while Mia threw rose petals with wild abandon, and their guests erupted in cheers. Grace kicked hard enough that Ethan felt it through Rebecca's dress, as if announcing her presence at this new beginning. The reception was at the community center, transformed with lights and flowers into something magical. Rebecca had insisted where better to celebrate than the place that had brought them together, professionally built by their shared vision. During toasts, Miguel told embarrassing stories about Ethan's early construction disasters. Margaret Lou, slightly tipsy on champagne, revealed that she'd known Richard Sterling personally and that he would have loved Ethan's integrity. William Chen spoke about legacy and building things that last, his words carrying weight that went beyond wedding speeches. But it was Mia's toast that brought the house down. When Daddy saved Rebecca from the ocean, I was scared he wouldn't come back. But he did, and he brought Rebecca with him. She was supposed to be just a mermaid we saved, but she became my mom. Not my first mom, but my real mom. The one who stays. And now baby Grace gets to have the family I always wanted. So thank you, Daddy, for being brave. And thank you, Rebecca, for holding on. And thank you, Ocean, for bringing you together even though you're very scary and we don't swim in you anymore. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Rebecca pulled Mia into a fierce hug while Ethan wrapped his arms around both of them, his family complete, even before Grace arrived. Did I do good? Mia whispered. You did perfect, Rebecca assured her. As the evening progressed, Ethan found himself watching Rebecca dance with members of his construction crew, her designer wedding dress swirling as Miguel taught her some questionable salsa moves. She'd come so far from the polished CEO he'd first met in the hospital, though that strength was still there, just tempered now with joy. She's something else, William Chen said, appearing at his elbow. I've known Rebecca since she was Mia's age, you know. Richard used to bring her to board meetings, let her sit in the corner with her coloring books. She mentioned that. What she probably didn't mention was that even then she was listening. Once when she was 8, she corrected my math during a financial presentation. Richard was mortified, but she was right. Sounds like Rebecca. The point is, she's always been brilliant, but she's never been happy. Not until you. She makes me happy too. Good, because I have a proposition for you. Ethan tensed. Corporate propositions rarely ended well in his experience. William seemed to sense his concern. Nothing nefarious, Sterling Development wants to fund 3 more community centers. Full creative control to Sterling Carter Community Development. Rebecca already knows this is her wedding gift from the board. 3 centers. To start, if they're all as successful as this one, we'll discuss more. Consider it an investment in the future. Speaking of which, he nodded toward Rebecca's belly. When's the little one due? 3 weeks. During quarterly reports. Rebecca will love that scheduling. They laughed, and Ethan realized that somewhere along the way, he'd become comfortable in Rebecca's world, just as she'd become comfortable in his. The party continued past midnight, but Rebecca and Ethan slipped away earlier, walking hand in hand along the beach while their guests celebrated. The moon was full, turning the ocean into liquid silver. No regrets? Rebecca asked their traditional question. None. You. Just one. What? I can't see my feet anymore, and these shoes are killing me. Ethan laughed and knelt, removing her heels and tossing them aside. Better? Perfect. Though now you'll have to carry me. Always, he said, sweeping her into his arms despite her protesting laugh. Ethan. You'll hurt yourself. Please, I haul lumber all day. You and Grace together weigh less than a load of 2x4s. How romantic. He carried her to where the waves just touched the shore, setting her down gently but keeping his arms around her. "This is where I found you," he said quietly. "This is where we found each other," she corrected. They stood there remembering that October morning that felt both like yesterday and a lifetime ago. So much had changed, yet the ocean remained the same, eternal and indifferent to human drama. "What are you thinking?" Rebecca asked. "That Mia was right. You are a mermaid. You came from the sea and changed everything." Mermaids return to the sea eventually. Not this one. This one stays on land, builds community centers, raises little girls, and makes terrible coffee. "My coffee's not that bad." "It's terrible, but I love you anyway." She laughed, the sound carrying across the water. "I love you too, even though you leave your work boots everywhere and sing off key in the shower." "I do not sing off key." "You really do." Grace kicks in protest every time. As if in response, the baby kicked hard enough to make Rebecca gasp. "Easy there, little one," Ethan said, placing his hand on Rebecca's belly. "Save the construction work for after you're born." "She's strong," Rebecca said. "Like her father. Like her mother." They made their way back to the reception where Mia had fallen asleep on Margaret Liu's lap, the older woman looking bewildered but pleased by this turn of events. "She crashed about 10 minutes ago," Margaret explained, mid-sentence about whale migration patterns. "She's been studying," Rebecca said, gathering Mia into her arms. "She wants to teach Grace everything about the ocean." "From a safe distance, I hope," Margaret said dryly. "We've had quite enough ocean drama for one lifetime." The next morning, they woke in their Victorian house as a married couple. Mia bounced on their bed at an ungodly hour, already planning Grace's nursery improvements. "She needs more fish," Mia declared. "Happy fish, not scary ones." "It's 6 in the morning," Ethan groaned. "Fish don't sleep," Mia informed him. "I read about it." "Some fish do sleep," Rebecca corrected, then winced. "Oh, what's wrong?" Ethan was immediately alert. "Nothing, just a strong kick. Grace is apparently an early riser like her sister." But throughout the day, Rebecca seemed uncomfortable. She insisted she was fine focusing on unpacking wedding gifts and writing thank you notes. It wasn't until evening, as they sat down to dinner, that she gasped and gripped the table. "That wasn't a kick," she managed. "Rebecca, I think my water just broke." "But you're not due for 3 weeks. Tell that to Grace." The next hour was controlled chaos. Ethan called Miguel to watch Mia while they raced to the hospital. Rebecca, ever the CEO, tried to call Jennifer to reschedule Monday's meetings between contractions. "Are you seriously thinking about work right now?" Ethan demanded, weaving through traffic. "I need distraction. Oh God, these are getting stronger." "How far apart?" 5 minutes, maybe less." "We're almost there." They made it to the hospital with little time to spare. Grace, it seemed, had inherited her mother's determination and her father's timing. 3 hours after arriving, she made her entrance into the world screaming with impressive lung capacity. "She's perfect," Rebecca whispered, holding their daughter for the first time. "Look at her, Ethan." Grace had a shock of dark hair like her father and her mother's delicate features. Her eyes, when she opened them, were the same green as Rebecca's, already alert and taking in the world. "She's beautiful," Ethan agreed, one finger stroking Grace's tiny hand, "just like her mother." "Want to hold her?" Ethan took Grace carefully, this tiny life they'd created together. She immediately stopped crying, staring up at him with those serious green eyes. "Hey there, little one. I'm your daddy, the one who's going to teach you to build things and swim safely and never ever go near dangerous rocks at high tide." Rebecca laughed weakly. "She's 5 minutes old and you're already setting rules." "Someone has to. Mia's going to teach her all sorts of mischief." Speaking of Mia, Miguel arrived an hour later with her, the 6-year-old, practically vibrating with excitement. "Where is she? Where's my sister?" "Right here, sweetheart," Rebecca said, adjusting Grace so Mia could see. Mia's face went soft with wonder. "She's so small. Was I that small?" "Even smaller," Ethan told her, "but you were just as perfect." "Can I hold her?" They arranged Mia in a chair, carefully placing Grace in her arms with plenty of support. Mia stared at her sister with an expression of such pure love that Rebecca started crying again. "Hi, Grace," Mia whispered. "I'm your big sister. I'm going to teach you everything, like how to color inside the lines and which dogs are friendly at the park and how Daddy makes the best pancakes, but we let Rebecca think hers are good too. And I'll tell you about the day Daddy saved Mommy from the ocean because that's when our family really started." "Mommy?" Rebecca's voice broke on the word. Mia looked up suddenly uncertain. "Is that okay? Can I call you Mommy now, since we're official?" "Oh, sweetheart, yes. Yes, of course." "Good, because I already told everyone at school that's what I call you and it would be embarrassing to change." Even through tears, the adults laughed. Trust Mia to make the profound practical. The next few days passed in a blur of feedings and diapers, visitors, and flowers. The Sterling board sent an elaborate arrangement that took up half the room. The construction crew sent a handmade wooden cradle that Miguel had been secretly building for months. The families from the community center sent cards drawn by children, each one precious in its sincerity. "We're going to need a bigger house just for the gifts," Ethan joked, trying to find space for another bouquet. "We're going to need a bigger house, period," Rebecca said, nursing Grace while Mia read to them from her favorite mermaid book. "This one's already feeling small." "Already? We just finished renovating. I'm not saying now, but maybe in a year or two." "Are you already planning baby number 3? "I'm planning a life," Rebecca corrected. "A big, messy, wonderful life. The kind my father never had time for, the kind I never thought I'd get to have." "What changed your mind, but you did. That day on the beach when you refused to let me slip away. You didn't just save my life, Ethan. You gave me a reason to live it." They were interrupted by Grace's cry and Mia's announcement that someone needed a diaper change. Real life in all its unglamorous glory. That night, their first at home as a family of 4, they sat on the porch while both girls slept. The ocean breeze carried the salt and possibility it always had, but now it felt like a blessing rather than a threat. "The community center's opening ceremony is next week," Rebecca said. "Think we can manage it with a newborn? We can manage anything together. Even Victor's appeal." Ethan's jaw tightened. They'd gotten word that morning that Victor was appealing his conviction, claiming new evidence. "Even that, he can't touch us anymore, Rebecca. We have too much truth on our side. And the best legal team money can buy." "And that," Ethan agreed. "But more importantly, we have each other. He's alone in a cell. We're here with our daughters building the life he tried to destroy." "When you put it that way, I almost feel sorry for him." "Don't. He made his choices. And we made ours." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from knowing someone completely and loving them anyway. Inside, Grace made a small sound in her sleep, and they both tensed, waiting to see if she'd wake. When she settled, they relaxed. "Is this what you imagined?" Rebecca asked. "When you were young, dreaming about your future?" "No," Ethan admitted. "I imagined something smaller, simpler. A basic life with basic dreams. And now I have something I never dared imagine. A love that started with a rescue and became a partnership. Daughters who make every day an adventure. Work that matters, building things that will outlast us both. And you, brilliant, brave, complicated you. Complicated is one way to put it. Would you want it any other way? Never. Simple is overrated." A cry from inside sent them both moving the practiced dance of new parents. But as Ethan watched Rebecca comfort Grace while Mia padded out in her pajamas to help, he realized this was exactly where he was meant to be. Not in spite of the complexity, but because of it. The next morning brought unexpected news. Jennifer called early, her voice tense with excitement. "Rebecca, you need to see the news." They turned on the television to find coverage of Victor's appeal. But it wasn't going the way he'd hoped. His new evidence had been exposed as fabricated, and additional charges were being filed. Worse for him, other victims of his corporate manipulation were coming forward. "Looks like his fellow inmates have been talking," the reporter said. Several former Sterling Development employees are now revealing years of harassment and intimidation under Victor Hale's management. "It's over," Rebecca breathed. "It's really finally over." "He did it to himself," Ethan pointed out. If he'd just accepted his sentence, this wouldn't have come out. Pride goeth before the fall. Speaking of pride, Ethan pulled up something on his phone. The community center just won a state award for innovative design and community impact. What how? Apparently someone nominated us. William Chen says it wasn't him, but I have my suspicions. Rebecca smiled. He's gone soft in his old age. Or maybe he just recognizes quality when he sees it, in the building or the builder. Both, I hope. Grace started crying, the pressing needs of the present overtaking any concern about the past. As Rebecca fed her, Mia climbed onto Ethan's lap with her breakfast. Daddy, when can Grace come see the community center? When she's a little older princess. But I want to show her the plaque, the one about saving each other. We'll take a picture for her baby book, Rebecca suggested, so she knows her story from the beginning. Her story starts with the ocean, Mia said matter-of-factly. Everything important in our family starts with the ocean. It was profound and true, this observation from their 6-year-old philosopher. The ocean had brought them together, nearly torn them apart, and ultimately given them the push they needed to build something lasting. 2 weeks later, they stood in the community center for its 1-month celebration. Grace slept in a carrier against Ethan's chest, while Mia showed off her center to anyone who would listen. Rebecca moved through the crowd, every inch the CEO, even while wearing jeans and one of Ethan's shirts to accommodate post-pregnancy comfort. This is just the beginning, William Chen said, appearing at Ethan's elbow. 3 more centers are approved, and there's talk of expanding nationwide. Sterling Carter Community Development could become the model for corporate community investment. That's Rebecca's dream, not mine. What's your dream? Ethan looked around at his wife discussing plans with Margaret Liu, at his older daughter teaching origami to a group of kids, at his baby daughter sleeping peacefully against his heart. Just this. You dream too small, Mr. Carter. Or maybe I dream exactly the right size. William smiled. Perhaps you're right. Richard Sterling dreamed of empires and died alone at his desk. You dream of family and community and stand here surrounded by both. Rebecca's teaching me to dream bigger. And you're teaching her that bigger isn't always better. It's a good partnership. That evening, as they drove home, Mia asleep in her booster seat and Grace gurgling quietly in her carrier, Rebecca reached over and took Ethan's hand. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For jumping into those waves, for pulling me out, for not letting go even when things got complicated. Thank you for holding on, for fighting to breathe, for choosing to live. I had good motivation. What's that, the promise of this. Even when I didn't know what this would be, some part of me knew you were offering something worth fighting for. They pulled into their driveway, the Victorian house lit warmly against the evening sky. Home. The word carried weight now, not just a structure, but a foundation for everything they were building together. As they carried their sleeping daughters inside, Ethan caught sight of the beach in the distance, just visible from their front door. The ocean continued its eternal rhythm, unmarked by the human drama it had witnessed. But for them, it would always be the place where everything changed, where a desperate rescue became a love story, where a CEO and a contractor discovered they were building the same thing all along, a life worth saving, a family worth fighting for, a future worth every risk they'd taken to get here. No regrets? Ethan asked as they tucked Mia into bed. None, Rebecca replied, then reconsidered. Actually, one. What? I should have let you teach me to swim properly, in a pool, with appropriate safety equipment. Where's the romance in that? Where's the near-death experience in that, you mean? It worked out. It did, she agreed, kissing him softly. It absolutely did. Though Grace started crying, the immediate needs of infant care, calling them away from reflection. But as Ethan watched Rebecca nurse their daughter while humming the same lullaby she'd learned from Mia, he knew that every dangerous wave, every corporate battle, every moment of uncertainty had been worth it. They'd built something stronger than Sterling Development's empire or Carter Construction's reputation. They'd built a family on foundations of choice and chance rescue and redemption. They'd proved that sometimes the best things in life came from the worst circumstances, that drowning could lead to breathing more deeply than ever before. Outside fog rolled in from the Pacific, embracing their home in its familiar shroud. Inside, Grace settled into sleep. Mia dreamed of teaching her sister to swim. Rebecca dozed against Ethan's shoulder, and Ethan himself sat awake, guardian of this precious, improbable life they'd created. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The next community center to break ground. Grace's first doctor's appointment, Mia's second-grade registration, the endless juggle of business and family. But it would also bring morning kisses and evening stories, construction site lunches, and boardroom victories, the daily accumulation of moments that built a life. For now, in the quiet of their home, with fog pressing against the windows and his family safe around him, Ethan allowed himself to fully believe in their happy ending. Not an ending, really, but a beginning. The start of Sterling Carter community development of Grace's life of Mia. Having a sister of a marriage built on the strongest foundation of all the knowledge that when life tried to pull them under, they'd chosen to save each other. The ocean sang its ancient song in the distance, and Ethan finally understood its message. It wasn't about the danger of drowning or the heroics of rescue. It was about the courage to keep swimming even when the waves were overwhelming. It was about finding someone worth holding on to when the current tried to tear you apart. It was about building something that could withstand any storm, not because it was rigid, but because it was flexible, rooted, and made with love. "Ethan," Rebecca murmured, half asleep. "Yeah. We're going to be okay, aren't we? All of us? We're going to be better than okay. We're going to be extraordinary." "How do you know?" "Because we already are." She smiled against his shoulder, and Grace sighed in her sleep. And somewhere down the hall, Mia talked in her dreams about showing baby Grace the ocean from a safe distance, always from a safe distance now.